Evacuation notice in effect for this area. Please evacuate the area immediately. The river is going to continue to rise over the next several hours. If you live in the area, consider evacuating and you may become trapped in your building.
In times of crisis, we are all the same.
Well, when the flood happened originally, we lost power, lost the elevators and everything, and we cooked on the barbecue downstairs for a couple of days.
Trinity Place Foundation is a provider of self-contained housing for seniors. We evacuated 603 individuals from our 3 properties in downtown Calgary here.
There's a lot of people that have illnesses, in my case lungs, and other people heart, So they're very vulnerable, just to be moved the way we had to be moved. Well, you always forget something, I forgot a couple of pills.
And when you put people into a stressful situation, and emergency evacuation is a stressful situation, you amplify whatever vulnerabilities they may have. So you may have issues, chronic health problems, you may have other problems that relate to anxiety, depression, whatever, and you tend to see that a disaster or an emergency situation often amplifies those problems.
Issues that we really know that are especially troubling during these times are issues around housing, around seniors, around domestic violence, and around addictions or abuse or counseling.
When something like the floods happen, it increases family tension, which makes a situation that's already dangerous even more dangerous, because what happens is there's no one to blame for the flood. There's nobody to say, you did this to me. So that anger and that frustration for an abuser needs an outlet. So what it does is it turns into abuse for the women and the children in these types of situations.
You cope. That's all you can do. Life goes on. You can't change anything. So you just make the best of it and keep on trucking.
After having made the adjustment, I think people realized that they were able to, and that they perhaps had underestimated their own capacity to make those kinds of moves and adjustments.
In all honesty, it was unbelievable. The amount of people that volunteered and how quick they volunteered. It was great. You got to say something for this city. When there's a problem, make sure it's pulled together.
It is best to avoid downtown Calgary as much as you can. Well, certainly we had to evacuate 100,000 people. We were blessedly very low on injuries and fatalities, but we did lose one person, one citizen, and that is one person too many.
When the flooding happened in Southern Alberta, We were activated immediately. We had pre-positioned supplies, things like cots, blankets, hygiene kits, and we also activated our volunteers and our staff workforce immediately to begin to respond to the requests that were coming in.
I'm born and raised Calgarian, and we'll get through this. We'll get everything put back together.
Doing good?
Yeah.
Today we had a whole lineup of people with buckets, just hand to hand, and I had 7 feet of water, and now I have none.
A lot of these people probably don't even know who they are, but they're doing their best to make a little sanity out of the craziness that has been here over the last 6, now going on 7 days.
Oh my goodness, look at all of you. This is our city. This is the spirit of our city.
Since the flood, it's been okay to knock on your neighbor's door and ask them how they're doing.
This is who we are as Albertans. We're resilient, we're strong, we come together, and we certainly come together when times are tough.
We had a huge boom in lemonade stands.
We haven't counted yet, but yesterday we raised $833.
Kids across the city wanted to raise some money for flood relief. Every Calgarian figured out what they could do with their own 2 hands and their own heart and their own mind to help out our neighbors. And to me, my heart's full after all this, because that's the kind of community that we've built here.
Volunteers that we've been able to bring in from all across Canada who take vacation from their full-time jobs and give us 2 or 3 weeks of time to work 12, 14 hours a day, sleep on cots themselves, but be there to help people affected by the flooding. It's amazing.
Hey guys, you hungry? We got bananas, you want water?
The support the Canadian Red Cross has received financially has been amazing. We have generated over $30 million and are working hard and will continue to work hard to utilize that money.
And in addition, the financial cost of the flood is almost incalculable. When you combine private and public losses, we're talking about many billions of dollars. The City of Calgary probably was the single party in the province that was impacted the most in terms of financial loss. And we think loss to public infrastructure, pathways, sidewalks, roads, LRTs, bridges, is in the realm of at least $400 million. When we actually count in terms of replacing infrastructure, in terms of getting people back into homes in these neighborhoods, we really have to count that in years, not days or weeks or months. It's going to take a long time. But we're never going to be the same. The good news is we are going to be even better. We're going to be even better in terms of physical infrastructure because we know now to build things that are more resistant, that are more hardened against natural disaster. But we're going to be even better because we have to make sure that that community spirit continues.
The mold is actually growing up the walls because it was sat for so long, and now it's growing extremely thick. As you can see right here, it's starting to grow outwards on the walls.
The community of High River has been devastated and will be for a long time to come, and they need answers. We are here today to help people try to reclaim some of their life after this terrible catastrophe down here on June 20th.
EMS people were in the neighborhood saying, "You've got 15 minutes, go." It was home, and we put a lot of hard work into it. We just nicely got, the yard was just nicely maturing this year. We're finally finishing off a fence. We have full basement of sewage water, plus another 15 inches on the main floor, which means all of our quality furnishings and hardwood, everything's gone, basically.
We found old photographs, we have found baby pictures, mementos of their whole life have been ruined and in a big pile of sewage. And we're trying to salvage what we can for them and just help them build a future here again. The family that lives here, my heart breaks for them every day for what I see has happened to their future. You know, they wanted to retire here and now their future is uncertain.
It's just day-to-day frustration and anger sometimes and stress.
Good afternoon, 211 Calgary and area. Which services have you accessed so far? So on July 16th, we started answering calls from High River, and they are answered by our 211 information and referral specialists. So it's you and your partner. And how many children do you have? What we find runs underneath those calls is that emotional distress piece, the grief and loss, grieving what they've lost throughout the flooding time. So our staff are responding to those calls, and they are experts at handling those situations.
As far as what's next for us, we don't know at this stage. We have a 6-month lease on a condo in Okotoks. We're living day to day, hour to hour. Neither of us are sleeping very well. As a couple, it's tense. We're both short with each other, probably. We're just kind of trying to take it day to day, and that's all we can see doing at this point in time.
We're lucky we have these good caragana trees to grab onto, or it would be impossible to get up here. But I make my way. I got it down to an art and a science. I've been homeless since 2002. I worked seismic exploration for about 25 years, and I became kind of a road warrior. Never put down roots, camps, motels all over Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, and kind of developed some bad living habits, some lifestyles that were where you could spend all your money. So I ended up getting trapped in the cycle of temp companies and Cash Corner. And it's on a little bench land here. It's a natural flat spot between a steep slope and a steep slope. So it's a great spot to put a tent and tarp to kneel on so you don't get muddy when you open the tent. And then the tent is here, survival water, some garbage bags to keep the sleeping bags dry. I could hear the river right below me. And I was there, this is strange. And it was quite fast, and I kind of was worried about getting swept away. So I was waiting with my feet apart for stability. I grabbed the stick. I said, if I fall down, I am done. You know, there was There was no one around, and a lot of the shelters were abandoned and closed. I went from shelter to shelter, and they were closed. And I said, well, what am I going to do, you know? Yeah, it was pretty scary. And I felt kind of alone.
The music community from across the country, that would include our province, our city, and literally across the nation, came together to put together 2 major concerts.
Used to call the Rocky Mountains the land of shining mountains.
These 2 major concerts have together generated more than $2 million that will be contributed to the Flood Rebuilding Fund here at the Calgary Foundation. But we can be rest assured that many of the folks who are homeless here in our city, not just in our city, but in High River, in Okotoks, and in other communities that are affected by the floods, will wind up benefiting from this fund, and in turn, individuals will benefit as a result.
We probably work with about 20 to 30 people on a regular basis that we're aware of that are camping outside. You know, our ultimate goal is to connect with those people sleeping outside and really convince them into housing.
I asked for help after that. I put my name on all these lists. And I said, you know, I got to do something. You know, in the wintertime, it could snow 4 or 5 feet up here and go to -40. And, you know, I could freeze to death, you know. I'm just thinking, you know, I don't want to die alone in a tent.
It broke my heart to see this space just empty, and like this is kind of your home, right? Or your second home, basically. So, and now to see it like this, it doesn't even look functional to be anything. My name is Krista Hopfoff, and I'm the owner of Rewind Consignment Clothing, and this used to be my business. So because of the flood, we lost almost a month of business, had to do a lot of cleanup, had to look for a new location because the insurance people decided we had to completely vacate the premises and remove everything from in our space. The flooring is completely damaged. It's probably tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage, as well as some of the drywall, because when the water came in and pooled, it just saturated it, and it's spongy and it's really unsafe.
Well, I think in the very early stages, we recognized how serious an impact this was going to have on the province in terms of the infrastructure, people's lives, and we also realized that it was going to be in the billions of dollars. It's a cash infusion. The province is in a very strong financial position. We were able to use cash that we had on hand, and we're going to continue to do that.
The last big flood was in 1932, and hardly anybody alive in Calgary today was an adult in 1932 to see that flood. So we've kind of lost the whole concept that there's a flood hazard in Calgary, and this woke us up. I mean, this was really big and pretty rare, but it's not unusual in a sense. I mean, it's predictable that every once in a while you're going to have a really big, long-lived storm. We can't predict when the next flood of this size is going to happen. So it may happen next June. There's no reason why it couldn't happen next June. It may happen 100 years from now, and by which time everybody will believe there's no flood hazard again. The geology and geography around Calgary is not conducive to really big engineering solutions. If you want to pay the money, you can do big things. You can make a tunnel, you can drill a tunnel between the Glenmore Dam and the Bow River and run the flooding elbow through this tunnel down to the Bow River. That's going to be so expensive that it may be more expensive than flood payouts.
There's a lot of infrastructure that we're going to build and rebuild, but we're also going to take a look at, should we rebuild exactly what was there before, or should we try to do it better? So there's an opportunity for us here to actually change the way we're doing things and change the way we work.
I want people to go out. I want them to eat and drink and shop and spend money, and particularly do that in flood-affected neighborhoods. Our goal needs to be that not one small business closes its door as a result of this flood.
Fortunately for us, it's business as usual, so customers are finding us in our new temporary space. It's still in the same neighborhood, so it's not too far away, and it's been really good because we're in a little bit of a new market, so we're finding new people as well. This is our livelihood. Like this has become our career path, and this has become our source of income. So it's definitely scary, because if you don't have this to fall back on, you have no income. Like that's basically the heart of it.
I have been an addict alcoholic for near to 30 years. I had about 4 years clean and sober. I've been going to my meetings and doing the things I'm supposed to do in my 12-step programs. Given a flood, given the displacement, given the lack of accommodations available and lack of ability to afford the ones that were, I ended up in an isolated environment that cut me off from my means to get the support I needed in my recovery from drugs and alcohol. I went out gambling, I had a transference of addiction, drinking. I went backwards so fast, it went by before I realized it.
People who normally knew where to go for support didn't know where to find it for 2 days, for 7 days, because the city was closed down. The help was closed down.
And as tragic as it is to see the streets of so many communities empty of people and full of water, and to think of the thousands of people who've been displaced, it's incredible how we come together in times like this.
We know that many people are, live paycheck to paycheck, and it only takes a crisis like this to all of a sudden go from being vulnerable to being extremely vulnerable.
This flood's really affected the rental market, and we rely on the rental market. So vacancy rate is approaching 0 in Calgary, and we still have, up to 4,000 people who are homeless on a given night. We need to regain the momentum that we were experiencing with a number of our participants before the flood. Actually realizing their goals and seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, so they can get past their addictions.
My disease of addiction is the only disease I'm aware of that tells me I don't have a disease. My 12-step groups are the one place in the world that I wouldn't have known existed until I'd walked in the rooms and found out, where I felt part of something, where we're all working for a common goal. We all have a common problem, we all need to find a common solution.
As it started getting light at about 5 in the morning, we started seeing that the creek was eating away at our backyard. And as the morning progressed, we started getting more and more worried, and I took a couple of videos. Here's what's happening to our house right now. And then we sort of went into panic mode. We didn't know what to do and what to grab. All coming straight down at our foundation.
It was very hard for us to handle, especially me. The fact that you may lose your home is very hard. And not knowing when or if you'll be able to come back was very difficult for me to handle.
Got a report from the firefighter that our house is still standing, as you can see there. The creek, the river, whatever you want to call it at this point, is still lapping right at our foundation. The situation here in Canmore is unique from the rest of Alberta because we've actually had erosion, and that's more of the impact than the actual flood itself. So we had the creek flowing right up against all of our homes and eating away our yards and eating into our foundations. We've estimated right now it's going to end up being just over $100,000 for our house alone.
It all came out of this little basin in back of Canmore and came through this little funnel, and then when it got out of the mountains, it had to carry all this water and gravel and logs, so it expanded, and there were houses in the way.
The magnitude of this year's event was inspiring in a sense. I mean, the power of the mountains and the rain and water. We'll be moving forward with our emergency preparedness much more differently than we have been up to this point. We've just learned so much about what can happen in a disaster.
You can see there's not an excavator in sight. It would be fairly easy to get up there and reroute this channel off into the middle there. But instead, the excavators are working way down there at the highway, saving a bunch of pavement.
Things were just, dominoes were falling. I mean, every 15, 20 minutes there was something else happening, and we were just sort of reacting for the first 12 or 18 hours.
But there's nobody here. It's cops and helicopters and devastation.
A lot of these foundations have cracks all throughout them. Some of them gave way completely underneath, where the contents of the house actually fell out. It was a pretty disastrous scene here in the days right after it happened. So a couple of these ones, unfortunately, have been labeled as teardowns, and the foundation repair companies have said that they're not going to work on them. I just feel terribly for my neighbors.
We have had other areas of disaster, if you will, not to the magnitude of this. We're talking about a $5 billion event, possibly a $6 billion event. That includes the insurable losses that insurance companies are going to be writing checks for. That includes the dollars that the federal government is going to be writing checks for. And that, of course, includes what the provincial taxpayer is going to have to pay in terms of helping out and rebuilding in Southern Alberta.
I think it has brought a good sense of community to everyone in the province, and I think as a province it's going to bring us all together and make us a lot stronger going forward.
I literally knew hardly any of my neighbors, despite the fact my wife and I have lived here for 4 years. I think years down the road that is going to be something we'll really look back on and cherish, the fact that we now know our community.